Welcome back to the window. After a brief hiatus, the transfer market is open for business once again. It goes all the way through until September the 1st. I'm Alex Crook, talkSPORT's chief football correspondent. So let's take a look at some of the latest movers and shakers in the window. Well, let's bring you bang up to date with Manchester United's search for a potential number 9 to replace Rasmus Højlund, who had a really difficult season in the Premier League last year. He has interest from several clubs in Italy, and I think Manchester United would be willing to do business if they can bring in a suitable alternative. We know Viktor Gyökeres features highly on their wish list. There were reports coming out of Portugal at the end of last week that he perhaps would prefer a move to Arsenal, but United will keep pursuing a deal for him. They've also turned their attentions to Hugo Ekitike at Frankfurt, with initial inquiries made. The issue here could be the transfer fee that Frankfurt are demanding. They aren't under financial pressure to sell. Their price tag has been quoted as high as €100 million. I'm not sure Manchester United would pay quite that much, and they're going to need to move players on in order to facilitate any deal for Ekitike or indeed Gyökeres, with Bryan Mbeumo to join Matheus Cunha their priority at this moment in time. In terms of outgoings, Marcus Rashford is wanted potentially on loan by Barcelona. Jadon Sancho becomes a United player once again at the end of this month after Chelsea opted not to sign him permanently. And Antony is due to return as well after a successful loan spell at Real Betis. It's absolutely imperative United get some of those players off the wage bill before they can focus properly on a number 9. Well, that brings us neatly on to the future of Bryan Mbeumo. Very much in demand, the Brentford striker had a stellar season in the Premier League. We know that Thomas Frank would be keen to reunite with him, having swapped the GTEC Community Stadium for Tottenham. It's our understanding at talkSPORT, though, that Mbeumo's preference remains Manchester United. Personal terms on a contract worth in the region of £250,000 a week already agreed, but United don't have club-to-club agreement yet. They're still in talks with Brentford over the transfer fee and how any deal can be structured. Another player that we've reported Manchester United having strong interest in and indeed holding talks with is the Bournemouth forward Antoine Semenyo. He was one of Bournemouth's best players last year as they achieved their highest ever Premier League points tally. This is going to take a big money offer as well. I'm told that Bournemouth value Semenyo in the region of £65 to £70 million. He's also held talks with Tottenham and is a viable alternative for them if they can't persuade Mbeumo to turn his back on United and link up with Frank in North London. Arsenal fans have had a frustrating summer so far. They're seeing Liverpool, the champions, strengthen from a position of power. Manchester City really active in the market as well. Chelsea have signed Liam Delap for what looks like a bargain, £30 million fee. Manchester United have got Matheus Cunha through the door. Very quiet at the moment in North London. Even the Martin Zubimendi deal is yet to be formally announced. We do expect that to happen in the coming days and weeks, but they really need a new centre forward, don't they? They scored 17 fewer goals than champions Liverpool last season. We know they're juggling deals when it comes to both Benjamin Šeško at RB Leipzig, a player Mikel Arteta has long admired, and indeed the aforementioned Viktor Gyökeres as well. But they won't pay over the odds. I do wonder, just a nagging feeling, they might even try again for Ollie Watkins, having had a bid for him turned down late in the winter window. So I've mentioned Viktor Gyökeres a couple of times already this morning. There's lots of games being played when it comes to the future of the Sporting striker. We reported last week on a bit of a row developing because his camp claimed there's a gentleman's agreement. He can leave for as little as £60 million this summer. Sporting and their president have vehemently denied that. I think they want nearer £80 million. Then there were reports that he favoured Arsenal over Manchester United, and now press in Italy are saying Juventus are leading the race. From what I'm told, he is desperate to come to the Premier League, desperate, the former Coventry and Brighton man, to return to English football. So therefore Arsenal and Manchester United surely would have the edge over Juve. Another player that Mikel Arteta has been tracking for a long time is Nico Williams. Very exciting wide player at Athletic Bilbao. Helped them to the Europa League semi-finals last season. Was brilliant for Spain in the European Championships and again in the Nations League. The difficulty here is that the Basque clubs have always paid really good money, Bilbao in particular, in terms of wages. That so far has priced Nico Williams out of a move to the Premier League. And if he goes anywhere, I think it's more likely to be Barcelona. We're getting reports at talkSPORT this morning that Bayern Munich, also in for Nico Williams, have been told a move to the Nou Camp is his preferred destination. As well as incomings, we are expecting some departures from Arsenal this summer. Kieran Tierney has already gone on a free transfer to link up once again with Celtic. And on the subject of Gunners left-backs, what about Alexander Zinchenko? Didn't play a lot of football last season, the Ukrainian. I think he's keen now to move on and establish himself somewhere else. Several European sides showing an interest in the ex-Manchester City man, not least AC Milan. I think that would be a deal that would appeal to Zinchenko, and he's a player I think Arsenal would be willing to cash in on. There's also been some reports in Italy that Riccardo Calafiori, could return to Serie A. I'd be very surprised if Arsenal were to let him go, having only signed him last summer on the back of an impressive European Championships. The biggest deal of this summer transfer window has arguably already been struck. It'll be a British record fee that Liverpool are paying for Florian Wirtz of Bayer Leverkusen. We reported the news exclusively on talkSPORT on Friday morning that Liverpool had agreed a deal rising to as much as £116 million. That eclipses what Chelsea paid Brighton for Moises Caicedo. He's been on his holidays, but don't worry, Liverpool fans. Personal terms already agreed on a long-term contract, and it's our understanding he will undergo his medical on Friday ahead of a weekend announcement expected. And Liverpool aren't finished there. They've already signed Jeremy Frimpong from Bayer Leverkusen. I think he was quite instrumental, actually, in the Wirtz deal because those two are good mates from their time in Germany. Milos Kerkez, we're expecting to be the next name through the entrance door at Anfield. He's a player Richard Hughes, the Liverpool sporting director, has a really good relationship with, having brought him to the Premier League in the first place. And his dad came out overnight and basically confirmed this Liverpool deal is done. I'm expecting the transfer fee to be around £40 million. And they're still in the market for another forward player, Liverpool. Alexander Isak would be their dream target. Are they going to pay massive money for him? Newcastle quoting £150 million as their asking price after already breaking the bank on Wirtz. Possibly. Don't rule it out. Obviously, with freshening up the squad means that big-name players could depart, not least Darwin Núñez. He had a really frustrating second season in the Premier League. Arne Slot voiced those frustrations at one stage. He's long time been a target for the Saudi Pro League, and I think that probably will happen between now and the end of the window. Liverpool looking for a fee of about £60 million to get Núñez off their payroll, and that might just facilitate funds to bring in another forward themselves. Another long-serving Liverpool player who could well be on his way out is Andrew Robertson. This news came out at the weekend. There's serious interest in him from Atletico Madrid. I can see the fit. He's at the veteran stage of his career now. The game in La Liga, maybe not the same blood and thunder that he's used to in the Premier League, and I think he'd be the perfect signing for Diego Simeone. Liverpool will want a transfer fee, but I don't think they'll stand in his way once that Kerkez deal goes through, and I'm told he's keen to make the move to La Liga as well. Well, it's been a busy summer so far, not just in terms of transfers, but the managerial merry-go-round in full swing as well. Thomas Frank swapping Brentford for Tottenham, replacing Ange Postecoglou, ultimately winning the Europa League. Not enough to keep the Australian in a job. He's going to need money to spend this window, Thomas Frank, because by his own admission, Postecoglou struggled to balance competing in Europe with the Premier League last season, and they're going to be in amongst the Champions League big boys as a result of that win in Bilbao. They've already missed out on Angel Gomez, England international, opting to join Marseille ahead of Spurs, despite holding talks with the recently crowned Europa League winners. Bryan Mbeumo, as we've mentioned already on the window today, is a target, but I think he's still leaning towards Manchester United. Jareth Branthwaite has been mentioned as someone who could perhaps come in and bolster their defence. The messages I'm getting out of Everton are very firm. He's not for sale this summer. David Moyes wants to build their future, and it's an exciting one moving to the Bramley Moore Stadium around keeping Branthwaite. So I think it would take a massive offer from Tottenham to prize him away. Chelsea got their Club World Cup campaign off to a winning start live on talkSPORT on Monday with a 2-0 victory in that competition. They've already signed Liam Delap, who came on, made his debut and set up a goal in that game, but they're still looking for reinforcements, Chelsea, particularly in the wide positions we've been reporting already. Nico Williams would be a dream target, but I think he may well end up going to Barcelona or Bayern Munich. We know they've had offers rejected by Borussia Dortmund for Jamie Gittens. They will revisit that, I'm told, over the course of the summer. But a new name emerging in those wide areas is Malik Fofana at Lyon. This is just an initial inquiry at this stage, and I do wonder if it suits Chelsea that it's out in the public domain to try and put a bit of pressure on Borussia Dortmund, but certainly one we'll watch with interest. And Alejandro Garnacho as well remains a target. He also has options abroad, but we're being told he would prefer to stay in the Premier League. Manchester United open to offers for him. It is an added complication to this transfer window, the fact that Chelsea and Manchester City, two of the biggest clubs in the Premier League, are competing at the Club World Cup. That was the reason we had that rather strange situation where the window opened for a week, then closed, and now, of course, it's reopened again. It did so on Monday. I wouldn't expect too much business from Chelsea and City all the time. They're competing over in the States, particularly City, who've already signed 4 players, but we know Chelsea are working away on deals in the background. So it could happen, although at the moment their attention is very much on trying to win FIFA's brand spanking new competition. Well, one player not with Manchester City at the Club World Cup is James McAtee. He's opted to captain the England under-21s at the European Championships instead. I think that's quite significant, really. It gives us a big clue as to where his future may lie, because Chelsea blocked Liam Delap from playing in the under-21 Euros. He's with them in America, as I've already alluded to. James McAtee, I'm told, stalling on the offer of a new contract at Manchester City. And it's Pep Guardiola's policy, if a player doesn't want to be here, if he wants to move, we saw it with Kyle Walker when he was allowed to go to Milan on loan, he will not stand in a player's way. So I think James McAtee could well be heading for the exit this summer. Bayer Leverkusen, now managed by the former Manchester United boss Erik ten Hag, one of the clubs showing interest in him. He's a possible successor for Florian Wirtz, who of course is heading to Liverpool. Leverkusen also linked with a move over the weekend to the Bournemouth attacking midfielder Justin Kluivert. I'm told he's not for sale at any price, so McAtee could be a live target for Leverkusen. A lot of clubs tracking him though. And what for Jack Grealish, another player not with Manchester City over in the States. He was left out of the squad altogether, having been also omitted for their final Premier League game of the season. That was a victory at Fulham that secured Champions League qualification. Grealish very frustrated to be left on the bench in the FA Cup final as Manchester City lost 1-0 to Crystal Palace. He knows, and we've reported this on talkSPORT, his City career is over. I think he's come to terms with that. We've seen videos on social media of him toning up, ready to join a new club this summer. Napoli, one of the strongest suitors, but in order to facilitate this deal, Manchester City, I think, would have to let Grealish go out on loan, and they would have to subsidise his wages as well. He earns around £300,000 a week at the Etihad. Napoli clearly can't match that, but it could be a good move, couldn't it, when you look at what Scott McTominay and Billy Gilmour to a lesser extent have achieved playing under Antonio Conte, and they can offer a place in the Champions League next season, having just won Serie A. So what should we be keeping an eye on elsewhere in the Premier League? Well, Wolves have already made a summer signing for Lopez coming in from Celta Vigo. He's seen as the long-term successor to Mateus Cunha. No surprise, George Mendes, the super agent, heavily involved in that deal. He's going to have a big say on what happens at Molineux this summer. Manager Vitor Pereira is a client of his, and they've also made changes at board level. Matt Hobbs, who has been the sporting director, he's been there for a long time. He's departed. It's a clear sign that Mendes is taking more control. Southampton dropped out of the Premier League last season. Tyler Dibbling, one of the shining lights, though his form did tail off once Russell Martin left the club. A lot of clubs are interested in him, the likes of Tottenham, Manchester United, Newcastle as well. At one stage, Southampton were quoting £100 million to his suitors as a transfer fee. That was fanciful for a player who's only played a handful of games in the Premier League, only has a couple of years left on his contract as well. I do think they're now asking for £50 million, so there may need to be some negotiating to be done. He's a talented but complicated boy, Dibbling, because he did leave Southampton once before. He went to Chelsea, got homesick and came back. Not sure then he's going to be particularly keen on a move all the way to Newcastle. One of the clubs replacing Southampton in the top flight of Burnley. Difficult summer for them so far. CJ Egan-Riley key part of their defensive solidity in the Championship last season. They had a brilliant record of clean sheets. He's left. He was going to go to Strasbourg, part of the Chelsea ownership group. In the end, he plumped for Marseille and the lure of Champions League football under Roberto De Zerbi. Josh Brownhill hasn't made a decision on his future yet, but the Burnley's captain's contract is expiring. I'm told there's a very slim chance he stays at Turf Moor. West Ham, clubs in the MLS and Europe as well, all paying close attention to Brownhill. They would be two big-name departures for the Premier League newcomers, and there could be another in the form of goalkeeper James Trafford. Newcastle have already opened talks about potentially taking him to St James's Park. Lots of moving parts in this one. Burnley want a transfer fee in excess of £30 million. At the moment, that's too rich for Newcastle, but it could change if Nick Pope was to depart. Their current number one is wanted by Leeds United. And finally, let's just turn our attentions to matters north of the border. Rangers have their new manager. Big move for Russell Martin, sacked by Southampton halfway through the season. He is a former Rangers loanee, and he will know all about the pressure that comes with taking charge at Ibrox. And could a former Southampton player be following him to Glasgow? Aaron Ramsdale, keen to move this summer, wants to be playing at the highest level possible in order to get a place in England's squad for the World Cup. Russell Martin, I'm told, would love to take Ramsdale to Ibrox, although a transfer fee and the wages that he's earning at Southampton in excess of £100,000 a week could be an issue. Another target to keep an eye on when it comes to Rangers is Max Aarons, a right back at Bournemouth, was on loan at Valencia last season. Didn't work out particularly well for him. Bournemouth open to offers, but I think again Rangers are going to need to stump up a fair amount of cash to make that deal happen. Thanks for watching another episode of The Window. I've been Alex Crook, and remember, we will be back every day throughout this summer transfer window. You won't miss any of the big deals right here on talkSPORT.